Bergamo Island is a triangle of land between the rivers Adda and Brembo and the slopes of Mont Canto. The area has many historical and artistic monuments and important green areas where the characteristic flora and fauna have remained unchanged. One of the best-known villages in the Bergamo Island is without any doubt Sotto il Monte Giovanni XXIII, the destination of thousands of pilgrims who come here every year to visit the places that were dear to the heart of Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli. Visitors are welcomed to the hill by the ancient tower of St. John, alongside a giant poster of the Pope. Everything here recalls the good Pope. Not only the churches linked to his life, the museums of Ca' Maitino or the farmhouse where he was born, but also some streets in the town. For example, Viale Pacem in Terrace and Piazza Mater e Magistra are also named after the famous encyclical letters of the Pope from Bergamo.
Gloria a Dio e pace agli uomini di buona volontà. Tornando a casa troverete i bambini. Date una carezza ai vostri bambini e dite: questa è la carezza del Papa. Troverete qualche lacrima da asciugare. Dite una parola buona. Il Papa è con noi, specialmente nelle ore della tristezza e dell'amarezza.
The Bergamo Island is dotted with important estates like the impressive Villa Acreoli in Carvico, which is on the way to the banks of the River Adda from Sotto il Monte. The Adda and its valley are one of the most interesting areas on the island. From Villa d'Adda to Crespi d'Adda, the landscape has a fairy tale-like sequence of uncontaminated nature, which often gives way to interesting examples of industrial archaeology. The suggested route can be followed on foot or bike along Via Alzia, the towpath, running parallel to the river. Starting from Villa d'Adda, the typical species of birds and fish can be seen on the ecological oasis of Alberone, which can be reached by a practical walkway over the marshes. To enjoy a unique and unrepeatable view of the Adda, it is possible to go down the river on the electric boat, Addarella. This marks the start of a wildlife botanical route along the riverbank, which leads to the Leonardo da Vinci ferry, of which was designed in the early 16th century by the great Tuscan genius, and links the Bergamo and Lecco banks of the river. An impressive medieval tower, which historically was the entrance to the village, looks out over the Adda Valley from Villa d'Adda. The former church of St. Andrew the Apostle stands on a plateau above the Adda. This was the old parish church of Catello, already mentioned in records in 1149, rebuilt in 1469 and deconsecrated in 1940. It is an example of a late Renaissance church with Baroque additions and important ancient tombs. Going southwards down the towpath, you come to the single-arch iron bridge of San Michele, the only example in Europe, considered a real symbol of industrial archaeology in Italy and one of the most interesting achievements of 19th century Italian engineering. Built entirely from iron and bolts without welding by the Savigliano works, it is about 315 metres long, with the road on the upper level and the railway underneath. Along the river, there are hydroelectric power plants and lock systems. After leaving the river along Via Rivierasca, in the hamlet of Baccanello in Calusco d'Adda, there stands a place of worship which was particularly dear to Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli, later Pope John XXIII. The church of Sant'Anna Maria Assunta, mentioned as early as the 16th century, although probably built at an earlier date. Count Corleone and family decided to found a convent of friars minor there. In 1618, work started on enlarging the church, which was decorated with a Virgin Mary and other saints by Francesco Zucchi, and consecrated by the Bishop Federico Cornaro on the 22nd of April 1625. Not far away in the village of Solza, you can visit the castle where the famous condottiero Bartolomeo Colleoni was born at the end of the 14th century. The building still has marked characteristics of the medieval fortifications, including vestiges of its ramparts and battlements. In the square in front of the castle, there is the ancient Foglieni fountain, dating back to 1875, and this is of interest too. When you cross the Bergamo Island from north to south, you come across the confluence of the rivers Adda and Brembo, where we find one of the best preserved model villages in Italy. When you arrive in Crespi d'Adda, coming down the road from Capriate San Gervasio, it is like travelling back in time, being in a drama set at the end of the 19th century when Italy was taking its first steps as a country that at last had been united. The village of Crespi d'Adda is an invaluable example of industrial archaeology and in 1995 was included as a World Heritage Site by the UNESCO. Founded in 1878 by the cotton entrepreneur Cristoforo Benigno Crespi on an area bounded by the rivers Adda and Brembo, the whole village developed around the mill, which was the engine and the hub of the whole complex. Between the end of the 19th century and the early 20th century, Cristoforo's son Silvio Crespi had the workers' houses built and gave the village all the services the inhabitants needed. A small hospital, a social club, public baths and showers, schools, sports facilities, a church and a cemetery. Perfectly preserved since the time it was built until the present. The village's town planning has remained unchanged, conceived with order and geometry, and with elegant buildings in different architectural styles.